This is great. Thank you all for being here. Laurie McCall is in the room as well. Laurie, would you like to kick it off for us?
Sure. Welcome everyone to this panel. We are the Platt Student Performing Arts House, and we support and advise all the student performing arts groups on campus. And many times our superstars on campus grow up into superstars outside of campus. And we have a bunch of them here with us today, and we're so excited. So we're going to have we have some prompts. We're going to ask the panelists, and then we're going to they're going to take questions from everyone that's here. So I hope that's okay. We ask you to stay muted until then. And we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. Sarah, I think, are you ready with that? And then we'll go into introductions and into the questions.
Amazing. Yeah. So we usually start most of our programs and meetings with this. Here's a quick land acknowledgement. So we as Platt House want to begin with a voicing of gratitude to the past and present generations of Indigenous people for the opportunity to live our lives in this space, speaking specifically of the physical space, not the digital one. Although we're gathering on the internet, many of us are living and learning on Lenape, which we currently call Philadelphia, but this land was stolen from the Lenni Lenape in the original stewards of this land. And just a little brief spotlight about land acknowledgements. They're an important way to amplify conversations about past and ongoing injustices against Indigenous people, and conversations about their rightful future in these spaces. So, wherever you are on this continent or other colonized lands, we do encourage you to pay attention and research to whose lands you're sitting on. And if you don't know the name and story of the people whose lands you currently occupy, you can find that information and many other great resources at nativeland.ca. Oh, Megan just put it in the chat, so it's right there for you to click on. And speaking of grad school and Indigenous rights, I want to direct you quickly to the American Indian College Fund. Obviously, American Indian is kind of old terminology, but a lot of these organizations hold on to old branding in a way to conserve their legacy. I'll put that link in the chat. It's a great place to donate to support Indigenous folks who are looking for financial support for college and higher ed degrees. So that is in the chat as well. Then we are just about ready to get started. Laurie, we're going to do a quick round of intros, I believe, right?
Yes.
And then,
Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
sorry, and then we'll move into some discussion prompts and a little like ground rules here is that there are no ground rules. You don't have to answer each question. You don't have to answer the question at all. If no one wants to answer it, we'll just keep it moving. So panelists, now I'm going to turn it over to y'all. Can you tell us your names, your pronouns? If you'd like, you're welcome to give a land acknowledgement if you're on a different land than Lenape. You can tell us what your focus was at Penn, and then you can tell us about your graduate program, the what and where. And I'll just go in the order that is on my screen right now. So if it's okay, I'll pop it off first to Aizhaneya.
Hi. Okay, so I might forget some of the things on the list, but I'm gonna try really hard. So if I forget something, just let me know. I'm Aizhaneya. I use she, her, elle pronouns. I am from Philly originally, so Lenape land. But I go to school in Providence. I'm at Brown right now, getting my MFA in acting and directing, and that's Narragansett land. Narragansett and Wampanoag land. Was there something else that you needed to know? I guess I should just say that I represent 4A all day. I was a member, president of the African American Arts Alliance while I was on campus, and that means the world to me. And it's so lovely to see so many other 4A panelists here. And so with that, I'll pass it to Nicole.
Thanks, Aji. Hi, I'm Nicole. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently in Newark, New Jersey, so that's also Lenape land. I'm currently a graduate film student, NYU's grad film program. I'm originally from Miami. At Penn, I was a communications major, and I was also a very proud member a 4A. Shout out to Afwa and Rafi who are in the audience, and they're also in 4A. And I'll pass it to Rayne.
Hi, I was not ready. I did not think I was next. Hello, I'm Gia-Rayne Harris. You can call me Rain. I am currently at the American Film Institute in Los Angeles. I just looked it up. I think I'm on Chumash land, Chumash. I want to make sure that's correctly said. So if anybody knows any better, fix me, please. I'm currently directing fellow there, and I graduate any day now. At Penn, I was studying health and society, so I've taken quite a turn in the last few years. I have a feeling that a question will come around if we always knew this is what we would do. I did not. What did I leave out, y'all? I'm from Mississippi originally. The y'all helped me out with that. So yeah, also I have so many people, 4A, yes, but also two of my old roommates are on here. It's such a, like, if I could go back and like tell baby Kayla, Nicole, and Rain, like this is where we'd be, like, honestly, I'd tell us to calm down because we have no idea what's good, how much good is to come. So I love y'all. I don't know who to pass it to. Johnny is next to Nicole. So I'm gonna say Johnny.
Okay, I think I finally unmuted myself. Great. I'm doing a really good job as the oldest person on the Zoom. Hi, my name's Johnny G. Lloyd. I'm originally from Asheville, North Carolina. I'm currently on Lenape land in Manhattan. I'm class of 2011 at Penn. I majored in international relations, but did minor in theater, and then was the chair of Intuitons and then Counterparts. And I graduated last year, which feels unreal, but that did happen, with Master of Fine Arts from Columbia in playwriting. So now I'm doing that. And also just general theater stuff, theater all around. He, him, his pronouns. I think I said everything. I'm gonna pass it to Daniel.
All right, hi everybody. My name is Daniel Carsello, he, him, his pronouns. I am class of 2016 at Penn. I got my BA in music, and I was a member of 4A, the Glee Club, Choral Society, just general musical things. And then after graduating from Penn, I took 2 years to like figure out what I was going to do next, and then got my master's in music history at Temple, and I'm currently still there getting my PhD in music studies. I also am the director of the Glee Club, so I'm working at Penn again with the Glee Club, except this time they're paying me, which is really cool. And yeah, I think that's it. Also, I'm in South Philadelphia, so similarly, I'm on Lenape land. I think Taiwo hasn't gone yet, correct?
Correct. Hi, my name is Taiwo Sokan. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I was a theater arts major at Penn. I was also a member of 4A, so lots of 4A family here today. And I was also a BBB minor. I'm currently in the first year, second quarter of my grad school program at UCSD for acting. And did I say everything? Oh, and we are situated on community land. So I think that was everything that I was supposed to say. So Kalyne, did you go?
I did not. Thanks, boo. Hey, y'all. My name is Kayla Coleman. I'm seeing people I know. Ansel and Valerie. I love y'all. I miss y'all. Okay, sorry. Yes, and I'm so proud to be on this panel today with all these beautiful alumni. I am currently on the lands of the Munsee Lenape people as well. I am in Manhattan. I went to Penn for communications and I minored in theater. Yes, I was in 4A, you know, also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, if there are any sorors on the call. Hey. I'm Aizhaneya's AK as well. I'm looking at my notes right here. Yes, and I just graduated from Brown Trinity MFA in acting class of 2020. So I did that whole transition in the pandemic, which was quite a story to be held. Thank you so much. And it was in Providence, Rhode Island. And let's see, who has not gone? Sarah, passing to you.
Hey there, how's it going? Sarah here, she, her, hers. I'm zooming to you all from sunny Southern California on a mashup of Chumash, Tongva, Fernandino, Tataviam, and Kijlands. Lots of exciting Indigenous things happening here. I was a class of 2014 BA in music at Penn. I also was class of 2014, 2 degrees at the same time. I can tell you about that craziness. General music studies at Berklee. And then I graduated 2016 out here in California, MFA performer composer at the Herb Alpert School of Music at the California Institute of the Arts. That's a mouthful, so we usually just say CalArts. And I currently still work at CalArts as an admissions counselor in addition to running my own music side hustle freelance business full time. So excited to talk to all of you. Thank you so much to Lori and the whole team at Platt for having us all. And I think we'll kick it back to the other lovely Sarah in the room.
Amazing. I think we are ready to go to our huge lineup of questions. So I'm gonna put Laurie in the room. Oops, no. I'm gonna put Laurie in the room, but I accidentally took everyone else off. So Laurie, while you're asking the question, I'll add everyone else's spotlights.
We're all still learning here.
A little bit at a time.
So we wanted to start off with a question, and just raise your hand if you want to be as many of you as you want can answer this, but what needs and interests and values for you to graduate training in the performing arts, and that includes film as well. Whose hand is up? No one wants to answer this? Taiwo? Let's see Johnny too.
Hi. So I would love to answer this because I had like a revelation last year as to what I wanted to do with graduate school. I was very adamant once I graduated from Penn. I was so burned out that I didn't think I was ever going to go back to school. And so I decided to stay in Philly for 4 years, almost 4 full years after graduation, and act. And also, we have a theater arts program, and it's not a department, and you learn everything, so you don't get to really focus. So I really wanted to focus on acting after I graduated. In 2019, I started to feel like a little bit stuck in the Philadelphia theater scene. And I felt like there was so much more for me to learn in terms of acting in general. Because I really wanted to get specific. I really wanted to specify and focus on acting and not just everything that has to do with theater, which is what I was doing when I graduated. I was doing a lot of acting roles, but I was also stage managing. I was dramaturging. I was set building. I was doing lots and lots of stuff. So I wanted to focus. And in 2019, I felt like the thing that was hindering me was that I was not able to just focus on acting. And that's when I decided to formulate the plan to go to grad school. But I also knew for a fact that I did not want to pay for grad school. I already had loans and debt from Penn. It wasn't a lot, but I still had them. And I just didn't want to delve further into debt for school. So I really focused on schools that I knew were really good, but I also knew had a TA component to them, so that I knew that I would get paid, and I knew that I would also learn how to teach, because I would love to be a college level professor in theater arts at some point in my career. So I very specifically was focusing on programs where the focus was acting. It wasn't musical theater, because I love to sing, and I would consider myself a singer, but I would not consider myself a musical theater actress. So those were the needs that I pinpointed. And then I went and sought out those things. I talked with my friend, and she told me about URDAs, which is like a way to audition for a bunch of different grad schools. A lot of them are free and pay you and all that stuff. So I went and applied for URDAs, and then I applied outside of URDAs to schools that I very specifically knew I wanted to go to. And UCSD was one that was like the #1 on my list. So I also before doing that, I looked up a list of like what the top grad schools in the country were, and then looked at which ones on that list for free. So yeah, that was my needs and interests, and like very specific planning and identifying in order to go the grad school route.
Awesome. I think I saw Johnny's hand up too.
Yeah, it's funny. I think there's actually a lot of similarities for between the two of us. I would say that for me, I had been, so I did not use my degree from Penn. I did not do anything with international relations. I don't know what that even means anymore. I instead went into general management in theater and was doing a lot of producing. I was doing that for about 5 or 6 years, and I realized that I was very interested in transitioning out of that and into a more creative side of my career. And I had been writing for a very long time, and it felt like I needed that time, like Taiwo was saying, to really focus and kind of dedicate myself to that craft. And I think that the reality is that, especially for playwrights, and I think this is also true for directors, and also actually management. I don't think there's anyone who's in theater management or arts management. Well, there are people who are in arts management but didn't do those programs necessarily. But those programs, you might not necessarily need a graduate degree in the same way that you might really want to have conservatory. But if you're transitioning from one part of the industry to another, it can be very helpful to rebrand yourself and to give yourself the footing that you need in order to really take advantage of that. So that was a large part of the reason that I decided to go. And also, I think the thing that I was looking for was professors who I connected with and really vibed with, because I think that so much of graduate school depends on your respect for and the respect that you receive from the people who are in the room with you. And I felt like I needed to know that the professors that I was in the room with were people that that both like I respected, and also I felt like there was some simpatico in terms of style or values that I could kind of use and still challenge myself, but find something that was really exciting there.
Sarah, I see. Thank you, Johnny, and thank you, Taiwo, from before. And I think now Sarah has her hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was really looking for a graduate school that would continue a lot of the things I found to be so great at Penn. So I wanted to continue at a place that was sort of combining elements of entrepreneurship, obviously studying and creativity, being collaborative, being community oriented. And I found at CalArts, it was a place where they're really focused in a multi-focused way on teaching and encouraging and empowering people to make art, make a difference, make a community, and make a living. I mean, there's definitely an emphasis on all those dimensions. So I definitely wanted to try to kind of keep that same momentum going that I felt Penn did really well as well.
And Nikki, thank you, Sarah, and Nikki.
Yeah, so after I graduated from Penn, I worked in journalism for a few years as a producer. And after a while, I realized it was really hard and I didn't get paid a lot. And for fun, I made a short film with some friends and I really loved it. And I realized it was something closer to what I wanted to do in my life. So I first kind of identified that in the life I wanted. And I love working from home, and I just wanted to design a life that made me happy. And I felt like film school would give me the skills and tools to do that. So I was looking for a few different things. Working in journalism, you have a lot of quote unquote soft skills like producing and researching. And I really looked for a program where I would get hands-on camera experience and editing experience. And I was really looking for a collaborative program where I would find classmates who can be like my future DPs and producers and editors and the like. Another big thing was mentorship, really looking at the faculty of the school and seeing their work and seeing if these were people I want to teach me how to make film. And the biggest thing is I love school. I loved being at Penn. I love homework. And I knew it was the only way I would get work done. And I knew going to a program like NYU, no matter what, at the end of 3 years, I would have 5 films. And there was no way Nicole was going to do that by herself. So those were kind of just some benchmarks that graduate school and specifically NYU hit for me.
I'm really impressed with how all of you like really knew how to, you know, like very decisive and when you came to realize what you wanted. And that's pretty impressive. I think a lot of people are held back because they can't make that decision or cross that bridge to a reality, to what their reality be. But the way that you all just described what you wanted, I think is inspiring in itself if we get to know other questions today. So thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
So the next one, I feel like Taiwo and Nikki and Johnny all talked about their research process a little bit, but let's go a little bit more in depth about, let's just back up and talk about, how do you apply to grad school? And what tips do you have for how to research grad school programs? I mean, I know from my own very brief experience in researching grad school programs that it can feel overwhelming, and you can just be kind of flooded with information and not really know how to process or sort it. So yeah, what tactics did you have for finding your fit? And once you had found something that fit for actually getting in. Kaylin, go ahead.
Okay, this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, seriously, okay? And I would like to just also say that I got the first shot of the vaccine today, so I'm sort of balancing, am I woozy? Am I tired? I'm kind of in my head. So I can't be responsible for everything I say, okay? I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm just saying. Okay, so this is one of my favorite things. Mentoring people through the grad school process is something that's so important to me, because when I was thinking about grad schools at Penn, this panel wasn't something that we had at the time. And there was maybe 1 or 2 alumni that I knew that had chosen to pursue, or at least that I was aware of, that had chosen to pursue acting in a professional manner. So I think just shout out to the leadership team for making this happen. And for whoever watches this on YouTube in the future, if you want to contact me via email, reach out to Lori, and I would be more than happy to share whatever advice or insight I might have. Okay, so I did the grad school process 3 times before I got to the program that I wanted, right, which was Brown. When I first left Penn, I got into one program and I spent a year there and realized that wasn't the program for me. And so I took the big risk of leaving that program and being in New York City. I was currently living with Rain and Nicole at the time. I mean, the connection on this call is crazy. And really understanding who I was as a person. I worked at Drama Bookshop for about a year, and that was a really beautiful resource hub. It's a 100-year-old bookstore that dedicates itself to artists that is currently being rebuilt. That's one resource. So here are a couple pieces of advice. So never give up, right? There's a thing called divine timing that I truly believe in. And I got into grad school when I was meant to get into grad school. And I couldn't have gone before then. And I am now graduating and in this industry in a confident and capable place that I could only have at this age with this experience. So just never give up. Keep pushing. Every time you apply, you learn so much. Going through the grad school process can be extremely tough spiritually, physically, emotionally. So know those things that bring you joy, that fill you up. I had Cynthia Erivo, I Am Here, on repeat. That was my song that I played before every audition. I was in there know your vocal body, whatever you need to warm up and stretch out. Also, always have a passion project that is outside of applying to the grad school process. My first year, I made that mistake. Okay. I mean, I was sleeping, eating, everything, grad school process. Then the thing ended and I had nothing. And so then I was I just felt kind of empty inside. And I was am I worthy? What is going on? So just have other passion projects. Actually, one of my passion projects that I started was a vlog about how to be an actor in New York City and just trying to provide resources. Because I think, especially for BIPOC POC and Black folk, I didn't have a lot of people in my life who pursued art. And so it was hard for me to understand what were the resources. How does one do this? You see when people get to X, Y, Z, but you don't see the in between. And you especially don't hear when people say no. That's why it's always important when I'm discussing this to tell you all that I heard no so many times. I went through this grad school process so many times. And it's just an important part of my journey that I love to share. Coaches are a part of the experience of grad school if you're doing it for acting. You can hire coaches. It can be expensive. So that's something you want to save for. I have coaches that I support and uplift. You can also find people who are just graduating from school who might give you lower rates, right? Who are looking for side work, who can be valuable resources for you. Mock auditions are also awesome. Get your friends together in a room or a Zoom room and set up the process like you would for the grad school audition. Just try to take away some of the nerves. I think that's something that helped me. And one of my grad school coaches, Brian McManaman, originally taught me, make a calendar, set goals, have accountability partners, right? You start in the beginning, figure out when you want to learn your monologues, when you want to choose your monologues by, when you want to start to perform them, have the grad schools that you love on a list. I mean, come on calendar and goals, right? Chat with students at the school. both first year, second year, third year, and then also realize, hold and honor their experience, and also realize that you will have your own, right? And also realize that schools are evolving, hopefully to a better place. So the work and the things that they had to go through might not be your same experience, but definitely honor that, because the same stuff might be happening as well, so that you can be prepared for what the culture and the dynamic at the school is. And outside of that, just make sure that you keep the people around you who believe in you and love you. So when you forget to believe in yourself, or you just have those down days, you have people who will pour into you, right? Who will pour into you and love on you. That is by far the reason that I will call myself successful, damn it. I am successful. That is the reason I am successful, because I have a community around me who loves me and pours into me and believes in me, and mentors and friends. And that is all for right now. But I got more to say if you need to ask me questions.
What a fantastic set of advice. Go ahead, Taiwo.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick off from what I started to talk about a little bit. One of the most important things I think that you can do is that if you are thinking about grad school, identify what you want out of a program before you start just applying to anything. Because one of the things that I did, I felt very much like I was flying by the seat of my pants. Okay. I did not have a lot, as much like I didn't have a calendar, which was like really bad because I was turning certain things in pretty late at certain times. So calendar, very important. But next, well, one of the first things you need to do is identify what you want out of a program. I knew that I wanted a program that was highly rated in terms of the alumni that they put out and what their alumni was doing. So I looked at the schools that I knew about. I looked at their alumni list. I talked to other people, heard about other schools in other places, looked at those schools, looked at their alumni. Did any of the alumni have career trajectories that I could envision myself going on? And then also I knew that I had spent time in Philly for like the last 3 years working with Tribe of Fools, and they are a circus theater acrobatic group. And I really knew that I loved that work, and I wanted to continue in a program that had strong physical theater background. So I knew that if they didn't have like a strong movement or music or physical theater aspect, I wasn't really that interested in them. And then the last thing I knew was that I knew that I'm not a musical theater person, even though I dream of like doing that. Like I want to like sing Sarah in Ragtime on Broadway. That's like one of my biggest dreams. But I knew that I wasn't a musical theater person yet, but I knew I wanted to be. But I also knew that I didn't want to be in a program where the entire focus was musical theater. There aren't a lot of those, but I just very specifically knew that I didn't want that. But I knew that I needed a program that encouraged and had singing lessons as a part of the curriculum, because I didn't want to let that part of me start to wither and melt away just because I wanted to focus on acting more. So those were a couple of things that I knew that I had identified that I wanted out of a program. So when I started to look up schools, I started to see, hey, do they have a strong physical theater movement portion of the program? Do they encourage singing? Do they encourage, I also wanted to be able to like do lots of different things, potentially like explore directing, explore playwriting, explore lots of different aspects of theater still if I wanted to, not necessarily mandatorily. And so when I started looking at schools, for instance, when I looked at UCSD, Stephen Bisher was the head of movement. And he is like, if there is anybody in the country that people are like, you need to learn movement from, it's always like his name comes up a lot. Like Stephen Bisher is kind of freaking amazing in that way. And so he had been at ACT and had recently come, like I think a year or two before I got here, had come to UCSD's program. So I identified that. I also saw Richard Robichaud was the head of acting for the grads here, and I looked at his body of work. I looked him up. His ideas of teaching really, really aligned with everything that I liked. And just the more that I started to like look at the people in the programs, the alumni, and look at them against the list that I had created of things that I wanted out of a program, that's how I started to nail things down. So even when I went to URTAs, I ended up getting a bunch of callbacks for different schools, but like there were only a few schools that I continued a relationship with because I knew that those were the kinds of programs that I might be interested in. based on my criteria. And then there was something else I wanted to say, but I forgot what it is, and I'll let other people speak.
Sarah Melnick just wrote in the chat, also see if there are UPenn grads who went to any schools of interest to you, because alumni are very supportive of each other. Very true. Take it away, Rayne.
Oh, go ahead. No, Taiwo, were you finished? You good? Okay. Yeah, no, so I didn't want to speak just now. Like, I thought I was going to come to this panel and just blend into the wall. And it's mainly because there's so much talent on this, and like hearing Kayla and Taiwo, like, just listen, I wish I had had them when I was trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to go to grad school. I had like 5 years where I was just doing all kinds of jobs and doing all kinds of things and trying to find myself and figure out what the hell I'm even trying to do. Sorry, I said hell. But then finally directing kind of revealed itself to me because I started to say yes to things that like made me feel good. Like I was in the acting route for a bit. I'm a singer. All that stuff was always very interesting. Nicole and Kalyne have seen me do the whole New York side of things, but I didn't know I wanted to be a director. I didn't know that that was a thing that was going to merge both sides of my brain. Penn showed me a very academic side, and I felt really clear on that. And I majored in health and societies. I was going to be a doctor. And then I walked out, burnt out, like Taiwo said, and being like, I'm not going to anybody's school. I need a second to like recoup and like be a person again. And in that time, acting, directing, all that had been a hobby. I'd never even considered a career long-term in this because I was going, you know what? Like, I don't know if I can make money doing that. My grandmother didn't know if I could make money doing that. When I got into school for directing, my grandmother said, so after this, are you going to go to the unemployment office and say I can direct? Like, what is your plan past that point? So the support was always in here, but in terms of like, what the hell are you doing with your life? Nobody knew what being a director, being an actor, like I come from a family who's got they have certain careers and they come from a certain background where they've had to take care of families. So they're like, what is Rayne doing? I say that to say, you have to start to get really in alignment with what you want and who you are, and really try to figure out, even if you're not totally decisive or able to make 15 lists and calendars, which I've gotten way better at, I think you still need to figure out what makes you feel good and what feels like the right thing for you. There's no wrong choice. I think I tell people, because I've actually had to mentor a couple people, whether or not grad school is going to work out, no matter what, you can make a film. Right? Whether or not you get into that program of your dream choice, like you can still make a film, but what do you actually want out of grad school? For me, it was structure. For me, it was somebody that was going to keep me accountable to do the thing. Like Nicole said, she knows she's going to walk out with 5 films. I know that I'm going to walk out with a crap ton of films now because somebody's like, where are they? Every day. Right? But keep that accountability past grad school. Keep that accountability if you don't get in this year. I think that's the one of the things. Like if you don't get it the first time, it feels like, well, should I quit? Should I never pursue my dream again? No, like you just have to reshape the dream. And the only other thing I want to add that like I think is super real, at least for me, and I don't know if any of the other panelists felt this, but that imposter syndrome thing that kicks in, whether it be at the point of applying, before applying. I got into AFI because I didn't know what AFI was. I actively did not look up the school. I applied, somebody had recommended it to me, and I was like, okay. And then when I got it, I was like, it's what? You mean who went there? Like, how did y'all accidentally do this? Who told you that I should be there? I don't know who y'all are. And thank God I didn't get in my own way. And so I think that's the thing. Don't get in your own way and assume that there's somebody better. Just put yourself out there, like do the work and put yourself out there. Cause it always works out the way it's supposed to. I totally believe in what Kaylin said about divine timing. It totally works out the way it should. You just have to really, really trust that you deserve that career. You deserve that life. You deserve to not hate your job and hate what you do for a living. You deserve like to wake up and pursue sunshine. So I don't know. I hope that helps. I don't know if it doesn't, but good day.
Yeah, hop in there, Aizhaneya.
Well, it definitely helped me, Rayne, because it definitely like opened up some thoughts, and I think there are just like a few things that I want to like emphasize. And like one is what you're saying around like do the work, and it doesn't take getting into grad school for you to do the work. Actually, quite honestly, I feel like I know, at least from my own experience, I guess I should say that having those like passion projects. My passion projects is the work. It's the thing that I actually want to dedicate my time and energy to. It's the thing that I might need somebody to urge me to continue writing, but it's the work that I want to create and the art that I want to put forth and that travels through my vessel and needs to be communicated. And it doesn't take, I don't think that grad school, at least from my experience, I don't think grad school gives that to you. Like, you have to have that. And maybe you have the idea, right? Or maybe you are like getting the like ducks in a row. Maybe you have the script, maybe you have the film. I don't know where you are in your journey with it, but I think it's absolutely essential to know that like grad school isn't the thing that makes you an artist. It's like the pursuit of the art makes you the artist. And so it's nice to go to grad school to maybe add that structure, to teach you some new things. Like, I've learned so much from my year, but it's all so like much more rooted because I came in knowing like, these are the things that I'm generally interested in. These are the kinds of works that I want to produce, I know that I love acting, but I also really enjoy producing. I like bringing people to the table and like building tables together. And I hold on to those pieces of me. And in grad school, I feel like I'm just refining that and finding more community to build those things with, and better partnerships. And take Kalyne up on Kalyne's offer, because Kalyne is the reason why I am in grad school. Kalyne was one of my mentors who walked me through the entire process, the 2 times that I applied. So Kalyne knows what she's talking about. Kalyne knows.
I'm so proud of you, baby.
Dan, I think I saw your hand up a little earlier. Did you have something to add? Go ahead.
I just feel like my Penn experience was really, I don't want to say common, but I feel like a lot of people go through this where, so I came into Penn bio pre-med, like, let's become a doctor. And within 1.5 semesters, mostly because of grades, but also because of passion, I was like, this isn't for me anymore. I'm not a fan of this. And so I didn't declare a music major until sophomore spring, which meant that I had 2 years to get the entire degree done, which was doable. But then I sort of didn't know what to do after I graduated. And I was going to go for conducting, and I got into no programs at all. And I was feeling pretty low on myself. And then my partner, who was also 4A, Matre says hi, for those of you who know her, basically said, well, why not just pivot? Like, why give up? Like, you still can conduct. You don't have to go to school to conduct. And so I wound up pivoting to music history, musicology. And I think that what it really taught me was that you're only gonna, like, the only time you fail is when you give up and decide that it's not worth pursuing anymore. And then I also agree that like divine time is a concept, because I went from wanting to conduct or be a conductor to getting into a musicology grad program at the exact same time. Laurie was like, hey, do you want to direct the Glee Club? And I was like, oh, cool. So just skip the degree and go straight to it. I'll do that. So sometimes things work out in a way that you don't think that they will. And I don't know, it's not worth like stressing over it. These are clearly things to think about, but if you're devoting your entire time to just figuring out grad school and not taking time to like have joy in your life, then you're just going to get a degree. You're not going to pursue a passion. I also think in terms of like where to apply, it isn't always a fail-safe because tenure is a thing and people might move around. But for me, the nature of like musicology is that you often want to work with someone who studies similar things to you. So if you're pursuing like that kind of degree, I recommend doing that, seeing who is teaching where, reaching out to them, having a conversation. And yeah, also if you can get a degree that's funded, do that.
Always do that. Oh, I don't know what just happened. Johnny, you had your hand up for another thought.
For like literally 2 seconds, because I think so much has been so wonderfully stated. I think the only thing that I would add is you can feel in a room, because when you're applying for grad school, you're going to enter many rooms, and you're going to like some of those rooms and you are not going to like some of those rooms, and you will feel like you're selling yourself sometimes, and you're going to feel like you're not selling yourself sometimes, and like pay attention to that. You can also tell when the person across the table from you cares about you and you specifically, like is interested in you specifically and has done their research on you specifically, and it'll come up in weird ways. They'll be like, oh yeah, and like about like this very specific thing that you did that's like barely in your resume, like what was that like? Or like they'll be like, oh, like do you like this person who you actually like a lot? They understand something about you. And that for me was like the biggest sign when I was applying for grad school. And like I've seen that like play out a number of times. Like it's like if you can go to the best program, and if you're the one who they're just like, oh sure, cool, yeah, you're great, that's not going to work for you, because at the end of the day, the experience is like, am I able to get something from these professors, and are they able to get something from me? Like, are we understanding each other? And if you don't feel that understanding in the room at the first second, it's not going to suddenly like appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust your gut. Yeah. Taiwo, yeah.
Just the last thing to add, because I remember that was what the note was that I wanted to add from Kalyne. Kalyne talked about getting coaches and how important they are, and they are incredibly important. However, I didn't have money at all for a coach, and I reached out to Marsha Ferguson, who was, when I went to Penn, was the head of the program. For at least one of the years that I went. And so I reached out to her, and then I also reached out to some friends who had either gone through the process or were just like, you know, who I loved, who like mentored me through the process. And those are ways to get that like coaching. Like Marsha, I went over to Marsha's house a million times, or met up with her at a coffee shop and specifically talked about what schools I wanted, and like and she talked to me about her past experiences, like, you know, in her past of applying for MFA programs. So like your professors at Penn are also, or the professors in the theater arts department in general, because even if you aren't a part of the theater arts department, they will freaking love you if you come in and you're like, hey, I want to apply for an MFA in some theater arts related field. Can you help me? They will want to help you. They want to help people succeed in this industry. So yes, please. Yeah. See, Lori wrote your recommendation. Marsha Ferguson wrote one of my recommendations. I think Carrie Mazur did as well. So yeah, reach out to the theater arts department, or whatever department is in like the arts field that you want, and see if there will be people willing to get to know you, even if you don't necessarily already know them, and help you through that process.
Absolutely. I'm gonna roll over to Laurie for the next question. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, those were like, I gotta say, that again, you keep inspiring, and Kaylin, I remember visiting you in the bookshop in New York once. So I was super jealous because you posted a picture with Lin-Manuel. So
yeah, he he wrote In the Heights downstairs in the basement. Draw books are real important to him. So
all right. So the next prompt we'd like to put forth is, what work that you did in grad school impacted you, or are doing currently in grad school, impacted your experience the most? Anyone? Dan?
Yeah, I can speak to this one for myself at least. So as I mentioned, I do this a lot. It's like one of the 3 personality traits that I have is that I direct the Glee Club. And in the past, we've had issues with understanding the context of music we perform, which I was not a fan of when I took over as interim director. And so what I think has been the most important part of my grad work has actually been applying it in real time with the Glee Club, and using like the tools of researching music and explaining music and its context to Glee Club students, so that we're not just, you know, taking a piece of music and saying, hey, this is a thing. You don't need to know anything about it, just how to sing it. Go. And so now we're treating them more like artifacts, because that's what they are. They belong to a culture, to a people, and they deserve the sort of grace and care and respect that they deserve. And I think I could have done it without going to grad school, but I think that getting the tools through grad work helped augment what I already knew should be done. So.
Okay, Rain.
Yeah, when you asked that question, I had a visceral response to like to two particular projects that like have changed things, but I realized in waiting to speak that like it's actually internal. Like so much of the work that's actually been the most impactful is the work inside me. I made a film that was incredibly controversial as my first film at AFI, and it wasn't intended to be. And I realized that intention and impact are very different things, right? And so there's a gap between the two. If I'm making a film and there's like my intentions there, the audience that receives it's not always going to receive it the way that I want them to. Yeah, my work always centers Black women, and it's all about the resilience of Black women. And I realized in that auditorium that there was me and like two others that may have understood the story. And so there was a moment when after I showed that particular film that a white counterpart of mine came up to me and said, man, like that was really brave. I just wish you'd considered your audience. And I said, I did, you're not it. And I think that was probably the thing that has helped me most in this journey, is realizing who I'm making things for and why, and who I'm trying to uplift and how. And I think, now I'm making my thesis film about my mom and about, and it's one of the most personal things I've ever tried to put into the world. And it's being met with every piece of every punch I can possibly see coming, but there's something so certain in my body now that like what I'm doing this for and who it's for and why is so clear, and it's helping me determine what the rest of my career is going to look like. I may not make films that make everybody happy or make everybody comfortable or make everybody like any of those things, but if I pick a particular like reason I'm doing it or person I'm doing it for, then I think I've done the job right. So I think in your work, challenge yourself, protect yourself, and just trust that your voice is the thing that matters most. And like other people's opinions on it are just that, opinions.
And I want to shout out Rain in this moment because she's been doing this work for a long time. Let me tell you, because while we was at Penn, speaking of centering Black women, she cast me as the Moaner in Vagina Monologues, which what was it? Had there ever been a Black woman as the Moaner? And not only that, she split up the monologue so that folks who identified as that identity could own their moan. And it was such a female empowered boss ass move from Rain. And I just want to celebrate that you're still doing that work, and you've been doing it since your days at Penn.
Thanks, babe.
Great, that's awesome. Any others want to chime in on something that impacted them or is still impacting them at grad school? Go ahead, Sarah.
CalArts is something kind of like ASAP at Penn, actually, which we did through the Platt Performing Arts House, where we do after-school program teaching. CalArts is something called CAP, which is our community arts partnership, and I taught for that as a graduate, like fresh out of, it's like I got my cap and gown and then signed up to do this gig. And I was teaching free classes in voice and piano and jazz and theory and songwriting to students and the Watts Towers community in that community in this part of Los Angeles. And this, what's really cool about CAP is they help bring people to teach in every discipline taught at CalArts in really underserved communities throughout the whole LA County. And one of the things that really impacted me about it was not only have I continued in my commitment to teaching music and to trying to spread art and performing art out into the world, but it's really amplified just a desire to continue to make sure that service is part of what I'm doing as an artist. It's not just about me, it's about helping and supporting and providing opportunity and as much equity and access as possible to learning these things, because whether these children grow up to be artists or whether this just helps shape them as human beings, I think it's really important to just do our part, not only to make great art, but again, like to really try to make a difference. And having the opportunity to teach for that program really amplified, like I said, that instinct in me.
That's awesome, Sarah. And a side note, Sarah once spent time in the summer with my son, who's, most of you know, is autistic, teaching him how to edit videos, which was a good skill for him to learn. So she really does have great teaching skills. So that we go way back there. Anyone else on? I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah.
All right. So this question was one that I kind of threw into the mix a little bit late. But I think it's important, especially looking at who we have on the screen and who we have in the audience, to talk about like this particular intersection of identities that we like have the honor of having on screen here. So we have 6 Black people on a platform that was curated for diversity of perspectives, but like not intentionally to speak about the Black experience in grad school. But we have the great chance to do that. So the question is, have your particular grad programs been a place where your identity or interplay of identities have been nourished? And take that, I feel like I don't need to, take it away. Taiwo, go ahead.
So I already talked about Stephen Bisher a little bit. So one of the questions that I asked when I came for a callback weekend at UCSD was like, how is this program treating its Black students? Because there were quite a few Black students in the program, which was something that I was not really expecting going into grad school, which is like should tell you something. But there were quite a few Black students in the year that's already graduated, and I remember asking them like, how does the program like treat Blackness and people's identities in general? And they were like, yeah, it's the great white way over here, but it is changing. And I love that they were that honest about it. And it really, really is changing, because I will attribute it all to Stephen Bisher. He actually left ACT due to the fact that there was due to racism at ACT against him. I think that there was a situation where they didn't think that he was a professor, even though he had been a professor there for years. And so he was barred from entering the building by somebody, and they had to get one of his white coworkers to. So anyway, he ended up suing ACT, winning that case, and then went to UCSD. So he was not playing any games, and still is not playing any games when it comes to appreciating and acknowledging and using people's identities, allowing them to express their identities. So knowing that he was in the program and that he was now the head of EDI for the program was something that was so important to me, especially after hearing the students say that it was the great white way, that's what their teaching had been a lot of. So, I mean, I guess it was a lot of faith, trust, and pixie dust, because like they said that and they were still in the program, but again, they were third year, so a lot of their training had like come to a halt, and a lot of that at that time it was like showcase preparation. But knowing that he was there and like was really, really important to me, and it has really played out in the way that the department handles a lot of things. Like the discussions are actually happening. They're not. It's not like when somebody messes up in terms of addressing race that like the conversations are happening behind the scenes. Something happened this year, and a professor did like made a comment about African American hair, dreadlocks specifically, about like how she didn't ask somebody to cut off their dreads, but he knew what he had to do for the show. And all of the Black students were like, what? And we immediately after that call was over, hopped on a call. Stephen was there, and we all talked and came up with a list of demands for the department in terms of how to move forward, and things that like costume, sound, like in all of the different departments, changes that needed to come out of this program, and when we wanted those changes by, and he helped walk us through like making those demands and like feeling comfortable using our voice to demand something. So if you're going into a program and that is important to you, look to see if it's important to them. See who in their faculty is helping. Like, do they have an EDI program? That might not be a thing that they have. Do you want to take on that burden of creating it? Maybe, but that's what my experience and my process has been so far in grad school with identifying my race as a part of me and not like a thing to the side. Yeah.
Go for it, Aizhaneya.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Taiwo. I want to, I think in addition, or rather I know, in addition to faculty and the importance of leadership and looking at what does the leadership look like, and I think that a lot of schools right now, specifically given like this past summer that we went through with the murder, I mean, the murder of George Floyd, I think is something that has really shaken this country in a way that the murder of many other Black folks hasn't. But then I think also the rise in connection with coronavirus of anti-Asian hate crimes in this country has really shaken us and really truly asked folks to question the themes of these institutions. One thing that I do think is really important to note and to say is that a lot of these institutions are built on racist structures, are built on these on homophobic and transphobic structures, and are ableist and really have programs that gear towards neurotypicality. And I think it's important, first and foremost, to note that. And as important as I think leadership is to knowing what's going to change. Like, for instance, we just got, next year, we have an incoming new head of acting, Sophia Silks, who is an Asian American woman. And you already see a difference in terms of the kind of programming that is going to happen, the kind of support that is offered to communities or to folks of the AAPI community, given this like really difficult and trying time. And so I do think leadership is important, but something that I really looked for was unity amongst classmates and student advocacy, because I felt like the students were the ones who were going to be the forefront, who are going to push for the change, who are going to recognize from their experiences what they need and push for what generations after them are going to need. So for instance, one thing at Brown, it's tuition free and we also get a stipend, and like the program wasn't always structured that way. It was due to deep student advocacy that happened. I know coming in, I knew Kalyne, but I had also met like Ken Matt Martin and L'Oreal Lampley, and I just like the way that like the way that Black folks were like, listen, we got you, sis. What do you need? What questions do you have? What information do you need? And we're just like completely honest with me. And also the way that I saw them working and pushing against the institution, because I did a program at Actors Theater of Louisville that had the look of it. They had the new core values. They had the new like artistic director. They had all of these things that looked really great on paper, but in actuality, I mean, I had a particularly trying experience, but in actuality, they didn't live up to what they presented. And so I think that the way that I found best to know is like, look at the students. And when I say my class of 23, we go hard for each other. The way that we are able to unite to come to a common understanding of where we need to go next, who we advocating for, what does our advocacy look like? Like, you cannot divide us, you can't come between us. And I think that makes us all the more stronger, because you can't shake a force. You can't just like overlook it when it's truly everyone in my class coming together about, honestly, like all of the intersections of our identities and the complexities of that. And so student advocacy, for me, look at the student body, look at what they're fighting for, look at how they talk to one another and how they unite with one another, look at whose voices they're bringing in. I remember my welcome weekend, I remember like students talking about the ways that the buildings that we access right now are not, they're not accessible to all. They're not friendly in that way. And I was like, I appreciate the fact that like you were bringing that up as a concern, because you recognize the limitations and the barriers to entry, and that you have some privilege in being able to operate in this space as it's currently structured, but being there to tear it down every step of the way. So student advocacy and student unity matters greatly as well, really with all intersections of identities.
I'd like to follow up on that. Thank you, Taiwo and Aizhaneya. That is so very beautiful. And Oh, so many things. I'm gonna keep this short. All right, I took notes on this particular question because I wanted to make sure I said something. Okay, first of all, I'm in the process of healing and growing from my 3-year experience at Brown. I hold in balance all the beauty and brilliance and growth that happened there with the challenges and the way they need to change and be held accountable. And it brings me joy that Aizhaneya, as a first year, got this badass class out here, continuing the long lineage of student advocacy. And on that, I just want to say a couple of things. A Ruha Benjamin quote: "Remember to imagine and craft the worlds you cannot live without, just as you dismantle the ones you cannot live within." Remember to imagine and craft the world you cannot live without, just as you dismantle the ones you cannot live within. Because I think it's so important as we advocate, and especially as Black people, that we also take care of ourselves. I think something that I found at school, there was a period of time where I got so involved in all the stuff that I couldn't even learn. And I think it's important as you're doing that to balance also getting your education. You know, and as I continue to find out who I am and become an artivist, quoting Sister Soldier, I want to celebrate the brilliance of folks who have been doing this work and who are continuing to teach me how to become the person, the human, the artist, the activist that I want to be. Nicole Brewer. I'll say it again, Nicole Brewer, Anti-Racist Ethos Workshop. Her work has single-handedly changed my life. You know, she talks about being able to understand that we live in a racist society. Therefore, the American theater industrial complex is racist. Period. It is a given. So how do we then operate and develop analysis, one that is actively combating racist behavior and ideologies, and process them so we can strive toward a less harmful, more equitable space, right? It is a given that we will harm each other. Family members harm each other, friends harm each other. So how do we then acknowledge that, learn from it, and move together in love forward that can work toward healing, right? So that we can ultimately be able to show up as our most brave and vulnerable selves to tell the stories and be the artists we want to be. And I'm telling you, when I'm like this woman, Girl Trek, the 21-day Black History Bootcamp, these resources, people who have been doing this work forever, lean into their brilliance so that you then have the tools and the access to be able to show up the way you want to show up and challenge the way you want to challenge. Because that's another thing. There is space for all of our brilliance, okay? Everyone's activism looks differently, right? What is that metaphor about a home? Somebody got to build a window. Somebody got to build the wall. Somebody got to build the floor. Somebody got to bring the food, right? So don't think that there's only one way to fight. There are so many ways, and let's work together and not shoot each other down. You know what I mean? Right. And remember to remind yourself to surround yourself by collective artists like Aizhaneya was talking about in her class, who are working towards this collective liberation that, like Rain mentioned before, in my personal opinion, that centers Black people, that centers the most vulnerable person in the room, right? That's also a Nicole Brewer quote. So I'll end there, but I just want to say thank you to y'all who are doing the work, and and the work doesn't stop after grad school, right? It continues and it reshapes, and we continue to find who we are and what we want to do. And I also want to hold that I am not perfect. I am not perfect then. I am not perfect now. I am learning, and I'm actively understanding what are my privileges. How am I showing up to be able to use my power in the room, right? How do I heal from the way that I survived in the past, and how do I show up today? And even when I make mistakes, give myself grace and love, give the people around me grace and love, so that we can actually grow together and learn together and not just shut each other down. But thank you.
Wow. I mean, I just have to say, like, when people say Penn this and Penn that, and Penn doesn't do this right and Penn doesn't do that right, look at all of you. Like, Penn does something right too. You all did something right, but Penn must have helped a little. I mean, you are what people aspire to be. And so whether you become, you know, an Academy Award winner, or whether you decide you're going to go live on an island somewhere and, you know, fish, it doesn't matter. You're just all amazing. So and we are at a really, it's 5:10. We have all these other prompts, but we have people watching and listening, and they probably have some questions. So I'd love to see if the people in the audience have questions, and then if they don't, we have other things to ask you. So and then I think at 5 minutes, you know, before, like at 5:25, I think I would just like all of you to see if you have anything you wanted to say here that you didn't get to say. Is that good? So audience members, if you could, and I'm going to need help from Sarah and Megan, if you could raise your hand or put something in the chat if you have a question, and then we can help ask them.
Yes, we have a question from James Noonan.
Hi, can you guys hear me well? Great. This is really a question, I think, especially towards Aizhaneya, because I'm looking towards Brown's directing MFA program, but like I'm asking really for everyone, especially for the MFA students, since like it's not, unlike say an MA program, you can't just go, it's unlikely that you'll go straight from undergrad to the MFA program, and you need to do things in between that. So how do you find those opportunities, and how do you make work that makes you a more competitive candidate?
Yeah, how do you spend your time between undergrad and graduate school? Go ahead, Johnny.
Okay, so the first thing that I have to do is that I have to plug where I work. I work at the Tank. We provide space essentially for emerging artists in New York City. We want to have your work. You can send me an email on the things. Everyone can send me an email. I mean, like not just you, but also you. You should send me that. I think that this is a different equation between directors, playwrights, and actors. There are different forces that are at work that might mean that you might want to, sorry, that's my boyfriend moving around. It's totally fine. That might mean that as an actor, you might want to go sooner, or you might feel it in your body that you are ready to go sooner. I think as a director or a writer, you want to be able to, you're going to have to market yourself as a director and a writer in a way that like you might have to as an actor, but it's not necessarily the case. You should not go to grad school until you feel like you've done the work, like both like the emotional work, but also the artistic work that like means that like everything is aligning, that you are not like trying to be someone other than who you are. And however long that takes, like wait until that moment of like, yeah, that feels like who I am. And then get ready for that to completely change. Like everything will be completely different afterwards. But like if I had gone when I first came out of undergrad, I would have been absolutely destroyed. I would have had no sense of who I was as an artist. I would have not had, quite honestly, I wouldn't probably have had like the desire from like being like on the ground and like applying to stuff to like really know like what that felt like. But I would say like in the meanwhile, what you probably need are like other people to work with. And when you look around, the people who like you knew from college are like the people should be like your first like line of defense. Like people want to work with you, especially the people that you've known for a really long time. Like the people that I still work with are people that like I went to college with, or like Penn alums. Like I've worked with like people that are like, you know, Penn alums that like I didn't even overlap with, but it's like always a joy, and you already have that shorthand. And there are people who are like writing who like want to be like, who want to meet directors. Like that's very real. So like, I would say like, look for the people who you know who are like, oh yeah, I like wrote this little thing, like I don't know what to do with it, and be like, okay, like, you know, how can we get some of our friends together? How can we read this thing? Because that's where you're going to discover like who you really are when you're not, because the system of doing work at Penn is exciting because you can do so much, but you might not have a chance to like focus on exactly who you are. You might be focusing on who all of these other groups are. Use those opportunities to be like, actually, I don't like that play. That's so weird. I didn't like working on that play. Or like, ooh, I actually really love figuring this out. And then come to me and be like, I want to like do like a little reading, and I'll be like, yeah, sure. Like, here's a theater. But like, find the ways to like, because also like know that like you can do work anywhere. You could like have like 5 readings on your resume that are like literally just in your house. Like, you know, like who's gonna check you? Like you can make your own like theater company. Like I have my own theater company, like that like I have with like Will Steinberger and Rebecca Levine, 2 Penn grads. But like we just like when we started doing work, like we did work like in a church like in Philly, and then we did it in someone's house. Like, you know, like, and like everyone except for us got paid like $200 because like that was all the money that we had. Like you can like literally do work anywhere. And like when you're starting off, like just take that and like run and discover what you really want to do, and then apply once you're like, this is exactly who I am and you can't tell me otherwise, and then let yourself be told otherwise.
Take it, Taiwo.
I'll be quick because I want Nicole to speak. Also, if you want a good way to like learn while also like to get that experience while also learning, there are apprenticeships. Start to look into apprenticeships around the country. Like just Google like directing apprenticeships. Different theaters have them. I believe the Cincinnati Playhouse might have one. Seattle Rep might have one. I think even maybe the Walnut might have one. I can't remember exactly. And I think Hedgerow might have one. And those two are in Philly. So, or in the Philadelphia, greater Philadelphia area. So look around for apprenticeships. It's a really nice way to get that teaching that you want and also get paid sometimes and like kind of continue the education and get that experience that you might be looking for so that you can know what kind of director you are. Because yeah, like directing auditions for grad school are so much about knowing your style, your vision, your voice. Oh, and fellowships, apprenticeships and fellowships.
Nicole, I think I skipped over you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you didn't skip me. I was just going to quickly say, at least in the context of film school, I do think there is some value of real life experience before grad school, whatever that might mean for you. But at least for NYU, it's incredibly diverse. There's 36 of us, half of us are from different countries, all various ages, which is also exciting. But it's people who are very, very different working together in like a high stress film set. So I'm so grateful for my couple of years in corporate America where I learned how to like navigate slightly tricky situations and just learn how to deal with people, because all of that's so important. And I think we've talked a lot about preparing for grad school, like logistically. And I think emotionally, there's a process of making the most of it, being in a certain emotional space. And even I just think having some experience before you go to school just makes you make better films. You know, I just think, and like everyone has different life experience. You can be like a very mature 20-year-old and have a lot to write about. But I am also grateful for early adulthood and some experiences I've had before film school that has informed my work now.
Go for it. So I think I saw Sarah.
Yeah, I was going to give kind of a four-pronged piece of advice I give to applicants who are applying to CalArts, but I'd give to all of you just thinking about grad school and just thinking about maybe grad school isn't the thing that's actually right for you, but even just figuring out, you know, like post-Penn, how do I spend my time deciding what is my next sort of big step, whether that's graduate school or some other endeavor. My advice to people is do solo projects, do something where you are entirely responsible for what is creatively and otherwise happening. Do some ensemble projects or something else with a collaborative situation so that you're really developing great skills and practical experience working with other artists or with producers, etc. Take any courses you can possibly find, particularly if they're offered by graduate schools of interest to you. A lot of schools, CalArts, I know Penn does too, have extension schools, they have online courses, they have seminars, either for cheap or for free, which is obviously the best way to go. And the fourth thing is just to get any internships or apprenticeships you can possibly get that connect you back to the creative kind of work you want to be doing. You know, obviously we all need to pay bills, we all need to make a living. So if you can't find a full-time or a part-time job in your creative field, hook yourself up with an internship, an apprenticeship, or some sort of volunteer position, keeping yourself connected to that world. So that would be my advice.
Go ahead, Aizhaneya.
So I was gone, basically throw the oop on this one to Gia-Rayne and Nicole. So what I'll say is that at Brown, like I am getting my degree in acting and directing, but my focus is definitely more acting. So I think that they will have some really important and awesome information to share. I will say though, I think it's so necessary as a director, because think about it, like you are, and the thing that you are going to do, especially at a program like Brown's, is like you're managing an ensemble. You're creating a vision and like seeing it through on all of the fronts possible. And so I think it is really important to have worked with ensembles prior to, have worked with many different artists, many different actors, to have had opportunities to see how other rooms work as well, how other directors run their rooms, to really gather information on what you like, what you don't like, and how to see a vision through to fruition. So yeah, with that, I'll pass it to, I guess, Rain. I feel like if you have a couple extra things, because Rain and Nicole have both directed me before, so yeah, I'll let y'all talk.
James, I just want to clarify though, you're most interested in directing, and I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And for theater or for film?
For theater specifically.
Okay, so that's why I was like, I don't want to do too much here, but I will add that like the biggest thing that I would recommend in that interim time before you go to grad school is really, quick question, do you plan to write anything, or do you want to just direct plays that are written?
I mean, I'm writing stuff, but like whether or not that gets published is up in the air at this point.
Okay, cool. Because like, here's the thing, like with directing, I was like, well, who am I going to convince to let me direct? Who am I going to get? Somebody has to trust me to do that job, right? But writing you can do now, right? Writing you can do constantly. And like I'm a writer director for sure. And so I'm constantly like working on that muscle as well. But in terms of directing, like, I think your biggest bet is to find, like Johnny said, friends now that are down to play with you and down to just get into a living room with you or on Zoom and let you practice. I think like you get better directing by constantly directing. And I think that, live your life. Like I've gotten better stories because I have existed outside of just the walls of school. Like by the time it was time for my directing interview, like I had lived so much, I had done so much. I've had so many jobs. I've been in sketch comedy groups and media agencies and all kinds of stuff. I have quit jobs. I have like on the spot. I have, I've done everything, but they looked at me and they were like, you've lived, like you can make stories now and like tell stories now because you have stories to tell. And I think that even with theater, like even if you're not interested in film, that still applies. Like keep growing as a person and keep like just focusing on the life that you have right now. And so when you walk into that grad school interview, you're like, here's who I am. While I'm willing to change and be moved and be challenged, like I know who I am. I know what my voice is. Like I think the biggest thing you can do for yourself is get really, really clear on your voice and why you as a director are different than any other director. Why you, James, directing someone is going to be completely different in any play, and how you can make your specific thing, your unique self come through, right? Because like if I had directed somebody like for real before I was ready to, we would have both been lost. And so I think that like more than anything, get to know you. And then when you go into grad school, show them that, like show them who you are.
If that's everyone, thank you so much, everyone. I cannot express enough gratitude for that. So thank you. I'm going to pass it on to other people so that I'm not the only one who gets to ask a question.
Great responses. Yeah, are there any other questions popping up from y'all? We have a few more that we've like kind of addressed that people submitted ahead of time, but I'll let folks who are here in the Zoom ask any questions that are on their mind.
There's also good advice from Sarah in the chat as well.
Oh yes, great advice from Sarah in the chat about just start your own thing, make your own platform for your voice if there isn't one that is already putting you out there. Amazing. Maybe what we should do with the last like 5 minutes that we have here is one of these like closing questions, and we can maybe pass it around quickly to everyone in the Zoom. Does that feel comfy? So yeah, on the other side of grad school, or on the other side of this experience, because sometimes some of y'all are in the middle of this experience, what have you gained and what have you shed? And we'll try to keep these like, well, give us little like bites, give us little sound bites of that. So I'll just like name folks and we'll pass it around from there. Can I start with Taiwo in the corner here? What have you gained and what have you shed so far?
So something that I have gained, I feel like I have gained a confidence in myself throughout the audition process and throughout being in grad school. I mean, it'll do that to you if you're like one of 8 out of like hundreds, you know, like that'll happen to you. But it's also like I've just gained like the ability to know like who I am as an actor, and that is like the most important thing that I wanted. Before, I really felt like I was kind of swimming, and I feel like that showed in, or not swimming, but like being kind of like just in the water, and like the tides were taking me wherever they wanted to. So I feel like I gained a sense of being able to swim, even if that swim was against whatever current was happening. Yeah. So and so I guess that is also something that I shed, was like one of the biggest things that people kept telling me in this process, or that I think I actually learned at like the Springboard NYC after I graduated, was that they said, don't say no to yourself ever. And I put that in the chat. You cannot say no to yourself before somebody else says no to you, because then you've already cut off you've already put up a block there, and you're not allowing yourself to potentially go any further. And I was saying no to myself a lot. I mean, I didn't wait. I wanted to go to grad school earlier than this, but I was always like, oh, I don't know if I'll get in. I'm not like really that great. I'm still not getting cast in the roles that I want in Philly. And so there was a lot of points in times where I said no to myself. And in 2019, I finally was like, I finally actually listened to that, remembered that quote that someone said one day in class, and was like, oh, I can't say no to myself. I'll let everyone else say no to me if they want to say no to me, but I can't be doing that to myself. So that was the one thing I shed. I don't say no to myself anymore.
Yes. I'll pass it to Sarah Melnick.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think for me, I speak a lot in metaphor, but I'll explain what I'm saying. I feel like grad school for me gave me an expanded wardrobe of hats to wear as an artist. What I mean by that is that it gave me sort of an openness to opportunities and to doing lots of different kinds of things as a music artist: teaching, composing, I'm songwriting, I'm producing, I'm performing, I'm arranging and conducting, I'm transcribing, I'm doing sound design, I'm continuing the Penn a cappella tradition, still arranging for entirely too many a cappella groups and glee clubs, shout out to Daniel, all the time. And I think also it just expands, it's expanded my vocabulary and my appreciation too of other artists, of other music and arts cultures. And, you get all these great skills and experiences in this, ever expanding world of collaborative art. And I think it's very easy to be hyper-focused on yourself. And I think one of the things graduate school helped me do too, was just think about myself as like a tiny cog in a huge set of wheels of opportunities and possibilities in music and art. So I hope that for all of you pursuing graduate studies, that you manage to find an environment like I was lucky enough to, where you get to collaborate in class and out in the world with people making all kinds of art, not just your kind of art. For me, choosing CalArts, a big part of that decision was, we don't just have a school of music, we have a school of art, of critical studies, of film, of dance, and of theater, all under one roof. And so I was regularly building this vocabulary and this set of experiences. That's why a lot of what I do now is film composing and musical theater and music for theater, is because of those connections, building that and continuing the Penn tacky tradition, of course. So yeah, I would just say be open to possibility and opportunity and try a little bit of everything. The Buddha special, one with everything.
I'll pass it to Kalyne.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, what have you gained on the other side of this experience, and/or what have you shed?
Yes. And shout out to Sarah was mentioning the program. Shout out to Penn Arts pre-freshman program. I hope y'all still have that, because that thing was special. I made my first friends. It was just a beautiful way to be introduced into the Penn community. Is that still a thing? Okay, good. All right. So what about, okay, there's this quote in my head that I think attribute to Dr. Tama and to Girl Trek. But what I gained is coming home to myself, to really being like unapologetically me in such a bright and beautiful way that can shine through any character. And I say that to say also, what did I shed? I shed all the BS, all the stuff, that we've been talking about, all the stuff, saying no to yourself, all the like. And I mean, did I shut it all? No. Am I still like, do I still get intimidated sometimes? Yes. Do I have bad days? Yes. Do I have bad auditions? Yes. But for the most part, I'm really able to just show up to any character in any room, no matter who was in the room, as myself and feel confident and capable. And like Taiwo was saying, that's one of the reasons I went to grad school. And I have that completely and utterly. And I do thank Brown for that experience and from all of my life experience. So I think it's also like, it's funny, you go to grad school, you get all this training, you learn all these sounds, you learn all this stuff, like this body movement, you build yourself all up or break yourself all down in order to really be able to just be you. It sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it's like you literally graduate just to be able to be yourself truthfully. And there's just a lot of like stuff that you have to like get through to get there because of life experience. And I think that's one of the biggest gifts that grad school could have given me. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Dan.
Yeah, I guess what I gained was patience in a way. As I mentioned, I applied for a whole separate degree program and didn't get in. I spent 2 years like doing a gap year. So no, I spent 2 years doing gap years because that's how plural and singular works. But yeah, by going through that process essentially twice and then doing it again for a PhD, you gain a lot of like patience and realize what's actually important. And you know, not to like plug the Glee Club's historic decision today to like move to full gender inclusivity, but I feel like if I hadn't had the patience that I got through applying to grad school, we might have tried to rush through this thing and it wouldn't have turned out as great as it is and is going to be. I guess the thing I shed is, I don't know, sort of like expectations almost, you know, like you expect when you go into grad school, like, okay, I'm going to do these things and I'm going to be done. And you go in with a plan. And I think that's just a general thing that happens at Penn. You have a plan and you go in, and if you don't do the plan, you think you failed. And as I said, I felt that as a bio pre-med major. But then when I went into grad school, I had an idea of what I wanted to write my master's thesis on, and it was not what I wrote it on. And that was fine because I wasn't expecting that I was going to be the same person going in that I was coming out. And just one thing too is like, I think I expected to be done by this point, schooling in general, and I'm not, and that's fine because it took me a while to realize this too, like this combination of gaining patience, losing expectations is that you're only out of time when you're out of time. It's never too late. So you might as well just go for it. Who knows? You know, you're never too old. You're never too young. You're never too anything to put yourself out there, see what happens, and remember that a no is not an indictment of you all the time.
So true. Yep. Johnny, you're next. What have you gained? What have you shed?
I would say that I gained perspective in the sense of like, in grad school, I learned what it was that only I could do. There's something that everyone has something that only they can do. Everyone has a perspective that only they can have. And sometimes you will not be able to realize that until you see a bunch of other people doing what they do best. And then you look around and you're like, well, why is no one else doing this thing? This makes so much sense to me. And that's probably the thing that you actually are the best at, and that the thing that you should be doing. And I think that I gained the perspective to see that for myself in that moment. And I think similarly to Daniel, but maybe from a different angle, I think I shed expectation, especially leaving grad school. Because you can never predict your own career, and you can never demand your own career, and the career that you get is the career that you were meant to get, but it's not the career that you deserve, and it's not the career that you want. And I think that what I've learned is that like, even as like extraordinarily good things happen, it is never in the way that I want them to happen. It is never what I think it's going to be. Every time I like start planning something out and I'm like, oh yeah, like this thing is good, like this is what it's going to be, then something else will happen. And it's like, you need to pivot right now. You need to start moving right now because you need to go where there is opportunity and like where you're being called. And learning that and shedding that expectation has been like very just like freeing in a lot of ways. And then the last thing that I'll say is that like, seriously, I know I said earlier, like you should email me to like not to plug where I work, but like I should plug where I work because all of you are like a part of like the Penn family and therefore a part of my family. And if there's anything that we can do at the Tank to like give you like, you know, like anything like in terms of like any performance ever, for anything, literally any kind of performance, like just let me know. I'll put my work email on the thing. And you can probably find my real email also on the internet, but just like know that you do not have to shed your Penn friends when you leave those walls. As a matter of fact, you probably want to keep them because some of them are going to be super talented and some of them will make a lot of money, and then you can ask them for money, and that's a secret that nobody tells you. But ask them for money, like seriously, ask your friends for money. Like the doctors, the lawyers, Okay.
I can confirm from experience. Yeah. So while we've got 3 people left, everyone start getting your emails and Instagram handles and everything that you want to share together, because we'll dump those all in the chat at the end. I'll pass it to Rain.
Okay, yeah, Johnny, I love everything you just said. It's so spot on. Also, I did a reading at the Tank, and I wish I had known you were there because yes.
Oh my gosh. I just started in June, so
okay, I feel less bad.
Yeah,
okay.
No, don't feel bad.
Okay, cool. But now I know you're there. I'm coming back.
Yes.
I tried to get together what I've gained and shed, and it just turned into a cluster F on this notebook. I think that I gained or regained the belief that, like, God, my family, they got my back, and my people have my back. My people are gonna stay being my people. Like, I moved to LA and was like, no new friends, because I felt like everybody I already knew filled me up so much. I've expanded since then. I found good people here too, but I think I just regained the knowledge that, like, home is home, and people, like, they're always gonna be there. Like, seeing the people that I know and love here today is like such a reassuring thing. I think I also gained insight into this particular industry, and I realized I'm not interested in entering it the way it currently exists. I'm really not interested in, like, fitting into a very dysfunctional space. I'd much rather build next door to it and make stuff that I can make, like, be like, oh yeah, we're at the same level, but we don't have that toxic stuff over here. So I think, like, more than anything, I'm like learning that I can build, and I have the foundation to build where I am, and I can compete with that without having to succumb to that feeling. The thing that I probably shed most is this idea that I'm behind, and that, like, all the turns that I've taken in my life weren't worth it. Like, they're absolutely worth it. Even when I wanted to be a doctor, my first feature that I finished writing a couple months ago, the girl pursues being a doctor. Like, all the stuff I learned are coming back into the writing that I'm doing now. And so there's no wrong turn. You will end up where you're supposed to be. Like, you can't not end up where you're supposed to be. So yeah, I think, like, the people out there that are super versatile and, like, questioning themselves and that have had every job under the sun and are like, what am I doing? Trust that there is a point that you will come to where it all aligns and where you are your full self. And, like, ask me in a year what after grad school looks like. Maybe I'll have different insight, but for now I feel really certain in being so much closer to home. So yeah.
Nicole, go for it.
So I feel like so much of what I've learned in film school is just so applicable for real life. I'm just so grateful for that. So much of school is being critiqued. And the first year I was like, oh God, I'm such a bad filmmaker. Every time they're like, oh, this shot was blurry. It's like, oh, I suck at this. Why am I here? And I was always just so, like, wrapped up in how much money it was and this bad angle. And I've learned so much this year and letting that wash off my back. And I've really learned the skill in seeing the critique within the critique and being able to analyze what people are actually asking for and looking for. And I feel like that skill is just so applicable for life and just how we communicate, because I don't think as people we're taught how to effectively communicate. And I think that's something I've gained. There's so much in being a filmmaker and a writer is my story clear? Working with actors, am I being clear? And I think just in life, that's now a skill that I possess, and I'm just so grateful for it. So I think worst case scenario, if I'm not a filmmaker, I think it just made me like a better person, as cliche as that sounds.
Not cliche at all. Yeah, I hear that. And last but certainly not least, Aizhaneya.
Alrighty, I got a couple of things. I feel like I'm constantly shedding and, like, growing more and more into myself, which is beautiful. But one, I feel like I am learning how to get more and more specific about what I want to build. With whom do I want to build it? Where do I want to build it? Why not? Why not me? How do I do it? I feel like I really just like I came into grad school with an idea. I was like, wow, like I love stories about Black queer folk that I can literally embody, but also like I want to be at tables. I want to produce shows that allow me to bring bodies and to bring stories that I cannot in this vessel perform or present to the world, but can allow other folks in their vessels to bring to the table as well. So like I think getting specific about what I want to build. Now I'm like, I love like sci-fi and anything that's multi-genre. So like figuring that out, I feel like that's one thing I'm growing and gaining. I'm learning how to permit myself to play more and just be like a big kid all of the time. And then lastly, but most importantly, I think, I am learning and I am gaining, and I know that I am the prize. And I think every last one of you have to know. I think this goes back to what Johnny is saying. I think this goes back to the clarity that Gia-Rayne is presenting. Like, I am the prize. I am the prize. And so when I walk into these grad school auditions, I already know. I already know what you're looking for. You don't know. You're looking for me. Here I am. Why not me? I'm not asking why me. Why not me? Because I am the prize. And so that's what I've gained.
You all truly are a treasure. This is, yeah, as Val just said, this has been absolutely joyful. I've just been grinning from ear to ear this entire time. I hope this is fun for y'all as well. Please drop your websites, emails, social media handles, whatever you like in the chat so that everyone can follow you. And we'll also, I'll send a follow-up email to everyone who registered just to make sure that they, that everyone, yes, thank you, that everyone follows you on social media. I'll pass it over to Laurie.
I can't tell you how grateful we are. I think, yes. I know that I've had some of you do a panel before. I'm glad that we have this platform to get you together a little more easily than that last time with the trains and the weather and all of that. So, so I think, this was great. I think we could, I just want to hang out with you all now in a room, and a comfy room, and just like have lots of food and whatever, and just like listen to all of you chatting. So I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate everyone for coming out and listening to our great panelists. And, those who didn't, I hope they can see it on YouTube, because this was really a brilliant panel. It was full of lots of good advice, a ton of inspiration, and we really appreciate it. And this is why I work at Penn, because of people like you guys that we get to see grow up into such phenomenal human beings. So thank you.
Incredible. Yeah, thank you all so very much for being here. Taiwo, you have something to say? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you if you can, if it's possible to save the chat so that I can go back through and like get people's contact information.
Absolutely, yes. So we'll be saving the chat, and I'll send this info to the panelists so y'all can all follow each other if you don't already as well.
Awesome, thank you.
We want to
take Val the Cruz for bringing lots of people.
Do we want to take a quick moment to unmute and all give a round of applause?
Yes, let's please.
Woo!
Beautiful. You're all fantastic. I could listen to all of you for another 4 hours happily. So that's just a note for us for the future. I guess we have to get a lot more time. You're all fascinating and beautiful and brilliant people. Thank you so much for spending your afternoons with us. We'll let you go back to your lives now, but please keep in touch.
Thanks Sarah and Megan and James also for being fascinating and beautiful people and helping put the program together.
Wonderful. Have a lovely afternoon, rest of your evening, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.